And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to the RG NFL DFS Tournament Takes podcast. I am your host, Chris Kirkwood, also known as Kikdiese in the DFS world. I'm here with my boys, Brett Hartfield, KillaB 2482, and John Sarabian, JSURab. How's it going, fellas?
I'm doing well. Week one, not the best results-wise. I crushed over on Yahoo and then either broke even or lost on the other three sites. So looking to get back at it. Definitely went away from the Connor chalk and even the Kamara chalk. I bought more of David Johnson, and then kind of off of Connor, I went to the Patriots running backs. So didn't work out for me in week one. How about you, JSURab?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best week. It wasn't the worst. I did the same. I was very underweight on the Connor chalk. I mean, really, in the end, he was like 25% owned in a bunch of the big tournaments on DraftKings. So I'm kind of kicking myself for that. Probably shouldn't have done it, but can't change it. I was on some things, like I was telling you guys before the show. I was really high on Emmanuel Sanders, Kenny Stills, Tyreek Hill. Kind of came in and was a guy who I really started looking at, especially after the Bosa news. I just thought, Mahomes might have a little extra time in the pocket, give him a chance to get deep. And, he obviously had a really good game, but, just a couple plays that didn't work out well, like my Derrick Henry play, even though he had a 62-yard touchdown called back on a phantom hold by Delaney Walker.
Let's just do tilt takes. This will be the tilt takes podcast. I'll talk about AJ Green dropping a bunny in the end zone. We'll go through every.
Well, he's catching all the touchdowns tonight, though.
Yeah, I know, and I don't have them because we don't play the Thursday games. Although I did play the Bengals defense tonight in my lineups.
Nobody plays the Thursday games. It's the sharp thing to do now.
It's not. Yeah, it's exactly. It's opposite thing. Opposite week. Yeah, so we'll try to keep this podcast a little shorter this week. We'll try to keep this under half an hour for the people. Hope that everyone was able to at least speed it up on their whatever they were listening to, so it was a little bit shorter. But we'll talk just quickly a little. We did kind of just mentioned our week one results. We'll go into it just a little bit deeper. Then we'll talk about some biases that maybe we've all formed or that people form. I know KillaB had some thoughts on this, going into that we formed from week one and how we can exploit them in week two. And then, then we'll go over who we like, some strategies, some tournament strategies, what to do. So the big news of the day is that the chalk smashed, right? The chalk absolutely smashed. I got lucky in this regard. Usually I'm a guy, I'm anti-team chalk. I've become a little bit more chalkier now. I've been getting more into cash games, and so that's kind of influenced some of my own lineups. And I had to do the crunch time lineups builder show for RG. So I was spending all my time trying to create like the perfect cash build to give to the people, and we did. We nailed it. But for me personally, this week I made some money. I did better on DraftKings than I did on Yahoo. I started off the week with Case Keenum, with Drew Brees and Tom Brady. I was going to go high end. I ended up to Case Keenum on like Friday nightish, and I went full circle and came all the way back to Drew Brees where I started, and that ended up working out for me. Who'd you use as your anchor in cash, KillaB?
Yeah, so I didn't have, across the industry, I had a lot of different exposure to different quarterbacks. Usually I'm never higher than 40 or 50% on a quarterback even in cash. So when I went cheap, I had a lot of Andy Dalton, even Case Keenum. And then when I spent up, I either went to Rivers or Breeze. So that seemed for my lineups to be the best across the industry. Those were probably my four cash game guys. So, yeah. What about you, John?
Yeah, so, I got on the Keenum too. He was really cheap. on both FanDuel and DraftKings, just super cheap. And then Mahomes, like I was saying, once the Bosa news broke, I just thought, he was going to have a better chance at, sitting back in the pocket and having a little more time to throw. And that kind of worked out, especially him on FanDuel. He was really cheap. So I had a bunch of those two guys.
All right. And I got lucky. So I ended up taking a firm stance with Connor. I just used him on every single lineup I did. And the same thing with Kamara. And I ended up going with like Diggs. I even played Diggs in cash, Diggs and AJ Green. I didn't have the Michael Thomas, but I had enough to get there. And I kind of used that as my main core for tournaments, although I tried a couple of different ways. I tried the David Johnson route, which didn't work too well. Also Jordan Reed. But, it was overall profitable.
Without looking at results, knowing that Kamara was – somewhere around 30, 35%, and DJ was, around 10 to 15%. I still think it was a great move to get onto David Johnson there at such a cheaper ownership level. Everybody always wants to look at results and go, oh, I should have done this just because, right? And, they still held Kamara under 20 touches. So what they're saying, I think, is the truth. It just obviously it helps when you get when you score 4 touchdowns. So,
yeah, he was going to be the guy. It was a great there's in the Dome, and there's no Mark Ingram, and it just was a concentrated amount of usage. You felt like, and so I just thought he was going to smash, and so I just wanted to be there. And I just had the visions of D'Angelo Williams, right, like for Pitt and how much they use that running back. So I just wanted to be overweight on those two guys, and I got lucky. Now David Johnson, I totally expected to be able to go toe for toe potentially, but there was the concern with how bad that offensive line is, and this team looked terrible. So this is going to play into our biases, right? Like now everybody's going to be off of David Johnson for sure. Kamara is going to be the mega chalk. Connor going to be the mega chalk, but here's the thing, fellas. Pricing is getting a little sharper this week, right? Like we had all these extreme values, so it makes a lot of sense that the chalk smashed the way it did. There were just plays that were just absolute extreme values, and you needed a monster score. This week may be a little different. There's still some errant pricing on a couple of players, some good spots and whatnot, but I think that this is the good week for the contrarian people, all the people who lost last week, these big GPP max entry guys who play with a huge contrarian strategy. I think this is their week to crush. What do you guys think?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, just real quick with the Kamara, it helps also when you're getting 12 targets in the passing game, and game script is keeping you on the field the whole time. And Gillislee, I'm pretty sure, didn't he fumble? And then that was kind of like it for him. Yeah. So all these things kind of worked in his favor to, get those 4 touchdowns or whatever it was.
It was 3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns. Sorry. Yeah. So, it's just the game, just them being down, the fumble by Gillislee, it just helped him kind of garner all that. And now he's, 9,500 on DraftKings. I don't know. I personally think Gurley's going to be higher owned than him this week. I don't know. I just think people see a little bit of a discount, and Gurley's in a really good spot, this week. So I just see that as kind of my take on that situation for this week and last week.
One thing quickly I wanted to touch on. So let's just go over the winning lineup. Not even the millionaire maker winning lineup, which is nuts to get, but the optimal lineup for the week. This is a lineup I could have sat on my toilet, and made on my phone in 2 minutes. If I was okay, I just want to do a game stack of I want Kamara. And I want to do a game stack. I want Fitzpatrick. Okay, I'll throw Deshaun Jackson in there. The Tyreek Hill is never a bad play. He's a huge upside play guy, right? He went absolutely berserk. Emmanuel Sanders was a great value. Gronk at the tight end position was in a smash spot. Melvin Gordon, we all knew he was going to be good. And then the Browns D in a rain type game. Like any of us could have come up with this.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It shows you, like, on guys like Tyreek Hill who don't need to touch the ball a lot. He only had 21 snaps or 21 routes run, by the way. And you just see how electric he is with the ball. That's one guy that if you're playing more than 10, 15 lineups, he's a guy that you should never have 0% of. You should always have, because his upside just with touching the rock is amazing. So, I mean, that's kind of one thing that you can just take away from just how athletic he is. But yeah, talking about week one bias in general, I feel like everybody made money that was chalky last week. And we do have a new group of people that come in every year for NFL. So, I mean, I think week two, it could be chalkier with like ownership. So I think you're going to see some pretty big discrepancies in chalk because even some people that just didn't have good results and they're easily influenced, they're going to go towards like what they're hearing or what they're reading in articles more. So that's just one thing to note, and totally agree with you, Kirk, that this is probably
we could have shipped a lot of money on the toilet, just on the toilet. That's what you were going to say?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. But yeah, I mean, like this is the one week for sure where contrarian should pay off because you're going to see discounted ownerships on guys that you normally won't get, I think, just because of how chalky that optimal lineup was. I mean, that optimal lineup probably had, 3 or 4 guys that were all like, almost top owned. So at their position. So yeah, it's one of those things where I think you can really take advantage of it here in week 2.
Yeah, there's going to be biases everywhere. What if you had to say what's going to be the biggest biases, JSURab, coming into this week, like Tyreek Hill? Like, so we already know who the greatest players are in the NFL right now. It's James Conner, Kamara, and Tyreek Hill, right? Like that's official. And the worst teams are the Arizona Cardinals and the Buffalo Bills. Now that may not change, but
yeah, I was gonna say the Bills and the Bills are definitely the worst team in the league, and then the Cardinals are probably the next. But I mean, other than that, I think that the biggest bias, if we're taking away from last week, is that the fact that if I'm playing like this week for James Conner, like I don't know what people's thoughts are on this, but like my bias is he's playing the Lev Bell role. Like that's going to be like, I don't care what his price was jumping up to. I knew already I was playing him. So like, I'm just going to stick to that and just go with it. I don't think like last week, his 4,500 price, like 2,000 jumping up 2,000. I'm going to stay there and just probably lock him in.
All right, let's talk about this week coming up. It's a perfect transition here. We're going to have some chalk. I'm not going to get into quarterbacks really because, quite frankly, quarterbacks are never quite too chalky. And I got Jamino's projected ownership pulled up here. It makes sense. He's got Roethlisberger and Breeze, Mahomes right there at the top, and those are like the two huge total games. So running back is definitely going to have a good amount of chalk here, and that's going to be Mr. James Conner. So I'm on board with just locking him in just because I think his price is too cheap still. I think this is basically Le'Veon Bell, maybe not the same. He may very well be as good as Le'Veon Bell, but regardless, his role is the same, and he got so many touches. He was in on every play that I think the role is there. What do you think, KillaB?
Yeah, so totally agree. Like I want to be right there with the field, if not more, with James Conner. On both DraftKings and FanDuel, Jamino has him as the highest projected ownership. So the one like area where I think I'm going to start getting away from chalk and the bias would be Alvin Kamara. Jamino has Kamara as the number 2 highest owned at running back. And so I think if I'm going to spend up, like this is a perfect week where I think instead of spending up for a 9 one of the 9K guys like Kamara or Gurley on DraftKings, you can stay a little bit cheaper. Possibly don't go over the 7.4 of Melvin Gordon, and then, spend up at your wide receivers. So that's just one way to build a lineup. But yeah, I want to be under the field on Kamara this week.
What about you? You in the same boat?
Yeah, actually, I love that. I just started kind of just doing some like little lineup building earlier this afternoon, and I was pretty much staying under 7,400 on Melvin Gordon and under pretty much for most of my lineup builds. So trying to fade, Kamara and Gurley, or be underweight at least to the field of Kamara and Gurley, is probably the way I'm gonna go too.
Yep. He's 9.5K, right? Like that's some serious salary here. We've got options to beat him. We've got other guys lower that could go toe-to-toe with him potentially. Is he a good play? Is he probably going to get a huge amount of workload? And we've got this huge total and another spot in the dome. Yeah, but like there's room there's room for error here. But there's not any room for error, I should say.
Yeah,
right?
If they utilize him as a wide receiver, kind of like they did in week 1, he becomes, pretty sexy, because a guy that you can, put in for 10 to 12 targets and then also throw in, 5 to 8 carries. You got to love that. But it's one of those things where he has to produce a 20-point day for you not to be dead in tournaments. And that's just something that, he's got all the big play ability in the world, but that's just something I don't want to be handcuffing my lineups to.
Yep, I agree. Next, some other guys that are going to be chalky: Christian McCaffrey. I kind of like this play a lot, to be honest with you. So I'm going to need you guys to talk me off him here. I was tilting him. I had a lot of exposure to him last week, and I was tilting because, Cam is still Cam. He's still his number one running option, right? Like he's always looking to run and steal the show for himself. And, maybe we got, CJ Anderson got some looks. Maybe we got a little bit carried away here, but like the spot is as good as it gets against this Falcons team that gives up a ton to running backs, pass catching backs. And I like his price. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I love the play here. It's also news that, like, big news for him that, like, Deion Jones and Keanu Neal are both out, probably the two best defenders on that team, or, arguably the
They're
two
the
best
heart and soul of the D.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I love Cam. I love Christian McCaffrey. I like that stack together, but you could play McCaffrey by himself. I just think that game could shoot out, and I love McCaffrey. Falcons give up lots of catches to running backs. I think Cam's gonna use him as a security blanket with no Greg Olsen. It just sets up for him to have a really, really big game.
Yeah, the pros are like, Atlanta was 32 DVOA versus the pass-catching running backs last year. But the one thing, they do filter that. And like you said, they're going to be without some of their linebackers there. But the one thing is this Carolina offense is becoming very focused, and I don't know if that's a good thing. No Greg Olsen. And then you have Funchess, who I don't know how much you guys want to believe in Funchess, but they're going to need a lot out of McCaffrey. And again, this is a type of guy where I still don't know if he can run between the tackles. I'd love to see him, most of his touches come through the way of air. And that's usually coming from behind, which that is the way this is set up, right? They're 6-point dogs in Atlanta. So game flow looks okay for McCaffrey. Price tag at $7K. It's one of those things, again, I'm not like in fully love with it, but I can see him and basically having the same amount of catches as Kamara. So yeah, do not hate it. It's just the touchdown equity probably not there, and the offense in general, just not a fan of. Also, when they do get to the goal line, is he going to get the carries or is Cam just going to carry it in? So that's the only thing is opportunity and like how inefficient their overall offense is that would make me hate the play.
But I like the fact that it's in a dome. I like the fact that his usage is the highest that it's ever been. Maybe it was a little bit overblown what we were thinking, but certainly there's room now to go up further with Olsen's injury. This Falcons D has just allowed a ton of receptions to backfields for the past few years in a row, so now they're without Deion Jones, Keanu Neal. I just think this is a really good play. It's going to be hard to get me off of it. And I'm probably going to try to differentiate in some other spots. All right, who's next? Give the next guy that we want to do a quick dive into.
Well, real quick while we're on that game too, I think one of the things that everyone's going to have to monitor is the Freeman news. Devonta Freeman didn't practice again today. And, Tevin Coleman is – if he gets a start and Freeman's ruled out, I mean, he's going to end up being really chalky, and I think it could lower ownership on, guys like McCaffrey and Connor even more.
That's going to change a lot of the running back ownership for sure.
Yeah.
What does the Rex Burkhead looks like Burkhead got a concussion in practice. I don't know if that's going to change anything, but I still have a lot of love for James White. We know Jacksonville has two awesome corners. Basically, their whole defense is phenomenal, but I still see James White lining up a lot, getting a lot of targets here. Outside of Gronk and White, I don't know where this offense is going to, how they're going to score their points.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they're going to have to use him just past, like, that's all they're going to be able to do. I mean, this Jacksonville defense is no joke, and they're going to have to get the ball out of there quick, and James White is that guy. And now, there's no Jordan Hill. If Burkhead is out for some reason, I mean, Sony Michel, they're not – do you really see them really getting him into a big role right off the bat?
No, but I see him being like the early down back, basically the Rex Burkhead role, just the carry role. The only issue here is, Burkhead didn't get a concussion in the game. So he must have got concussed like Monday or Tuesday.
I think he was limited at practice today or something. The thing I read, it made it sound like he was going to be okay.
Oh, okay.
To play. That's the way I took it. Now, I may be wrong. But I was like focused on that in the beginning, and then I thought, okay, now he's going to play. But okay, so he played. Let's say he plays. Are you interested in him?
Probably not, because he didn't get featured too much in the pass game. I'm just going to check up how many targets he ended up getting. So yeah, 3 targets, 1 catch. This is just a spot where I don't exactly love this. It would be more of a contrarian play, right? And I think I'd rather buy James White where I feel comfortable in his pass catching role, just because I don't feel like Burkhead's gonna snap off a 100-yard game on the ground here.
Yep. Okay. The chalky games. It's the Saints. It's the Steelers. What are we doing with the Steelers-Chiefs game besides Connor? We all like him. Antonio Brown, what are our thoughts? Juju Smith-Schuster looks like he's probably going to line up with Orlando Scandrick, who is the guy that you want to get. Tasty. Everybody talks about how he was let go by both the Cowboys and the Redskins in the last 6 months, and he's just the guy to attack. So, I mean, Juju had a good game last week. So, I mean, is he the pivot off of Antonio Brown, or are they both just complete chalk?
No, they're both going to be chalky, but I'm still going to play them both. I mean, I just think it's too good of a spot. These guys, garner, 60% of the targets combined. Like these guys are by far the guys Roethlisberger trusts the most. He's going to look for them. Antonio Brown can be double covered. He'll still be looking for him. Juju Smith-Schuster has a really good matchup. It just sets up as a good matchup for both of them. I can't see fading either one of them.
Yep, totally agreed. I think like even in a leagues type of format, I'd be very comfortable in rolling both of those wide receivers. Leagues formats, normally I don't go all tournament-esque, but you still want to be somewhat correlated because usually the percentage of cashing in a league is very similar to a tournament. But yeah, I feel like there's just going to be a high floor, high ceiling for both Juju and Antonio Brown versus this Chiefs defense that have 3 slot corners. They're forcing all 3 of these corners were slot cornerbacks last year. So it's just a spot where I think both Antonio and Juju will eat for sure.
And so on the other side, you running it back.
Yeah, I think you can run it back. Obviously, Tyreek, big play waiting to happen. But, I feel like Kelce, with him only getting 1 target, that's going to be – I always like the narrative where like a stud, just wasn't really involved in one game. And then they make a point into getting him featured. I know the Steelers have not been very they've been strong versus the tight end. So – you're going to hear, well, hey, he gets another tough matchup here, but I just think Kelce is almost somewhat matchup proof. They can move him around a little bit. He's athletic as all can be. So I definitely would want to have some ownership in Kelce this week.
If you're the Steelers and you watched last week the Chiefs game versus the Chargers, I mean, they have to be saying like, how can we stop Tyreek Hill? And if that's the case, I don't know if they can stop Tyreek Hill. Like, I'm still going to play Tyreek Hill, but, like, they're going to be trying to stop him. And I think I'm with Brett. Kelce is, like, a guy I think you're going to get at sub 5% in some tournaments, and I think it's a really good play. I would play Kelce and Hill together in a Mahomes stack. Like, I'm looking at doing that, and I'd play Kelce with Mahomes and no Hill. Just, change it up, try and get a little different that way with my game stack, because this is going to be a chalky stack.
All right, so here's the other side of it is that, the Steelers just don't allow a lot of production to opposing tight ends. Kelce's never had hasn't had good games against them. He went for 4-37 against them last year, 5-23-1, so he got a touchdown in 2016. So it's a tough matchup, but like this is a juicy total, right? So like everyone's going to talk about this all week, and they're going to drive down the ownership on Kelce, but he's still going to get ownership because of the humongous total. So you're going to have to make that decision.
And I kind of agree with that. I think the ownership will be high just because of the game is going to be targeted so much in game stacks. And now, like, seems like even the very beginner players understand, like, hey, we need to correlate our lineups. We need to throw in multiple guys in one game. So I think just based upon that, Kelce will be a little bit over 10%, maybe right around 10%. So, but I think on any normal week where the total isn't 53.5 is where it's at right now. If it was more like a 48 total, like he would be so, the ownership would be so much lower.
Well, I'm happy. I got him in my Yahoo.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't think the total – I get what you guys are saying, that the total could boost his ownership, but I don't think so. I think that people are off of him. I think that there's a bias right there from just 1 week, but if you watch that game, Mahomes didn't really look to, Kelce that much at all. I know he got 6 targets, but it A, really didn't feel that way, and B, he was just trying to sling it down the field. I mean, I don't know. I see if people are paying up, they're going to Gronk. I don't see them going to Kelce, and I see most people paying down anyways. Well,
Kittles and bits.
Kittles, yeah. Njoku's 3K, like on DK. Jared Cook's 3,600. I don't see many people paying up, and if they do, they're going to the best tight end of the league, Gronk.
All right, we're as always, we're going over on time here, so I'm going to do my best to keep this short and sweet. So let's each of you guys, like, what's your best, what's your like sneakiest or like your best strategy that you're thinking of right now to do for this weekend? Like anything that you're thinking, like any kind of a game that you think is going to go overlooked, or just anything in general.
I'll throw out like a contrarian take, just for the heck of it. LaShawn McCoy at home versus the San Diego Chargers. He's 5,700. I've only heard bad things by other people about why we shouldn't be playing McCoy, obviously the Buffalo offense has looked terrible. There's been some decent reverse line movement in this game. Obviously the Chargers have to come from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast. And I just feel like if they can have a semblance of a first half, McCoy's going to see 20 touches. He's going to be a big part of this offense because of how bad their offense is in total. And at 5,700 and low ownership, I want to be heavier than the field there.
I'm with you. I can't believe I love it. So I hate Buffalo. I think they're terrible. On my initial instinct was I wanted no part of them last week. This offensive line is terrible, but they made the switch at quarterback that should improve a little bit, right? He's going to need a safety valve, someone to pepper with targets. They're at home. It's different. Everyone's going to be against. He's going to get no ownership because he played under 35 snaps last week, right? But that's only because the game was out of hand with our boy Peterman. But, I think this is kind of a sneaky situation. And then, here's even worse one. Kelvin Benjamin. Something I read today, interesting fact. The leaders in targeted air yards last week were Julio Jones, Jarvis Landry, Kelvin Benjamin, DeAndre Hopkins, and Antonio Brown. Wow. Now, maybe Josh Allen is a little bit better, right, than Peterman?
Yeah, either way, they're going to be inefficient air yards. But, I mean, you can't get worse than what Peterman did.
And they're dirt cheap, and no one's going to go there. And the Chargers have a really bad history on the road in early games to the East Coast. Food for thought. What about you, JSURab?
I will not be taking any LaShawn McCoy or Calvin Benjamin, but I understand the ownership behind it in the play because of it. But my sneaky first of all, I think that the Carolina-Atlanta game stack is a sneaky one, and I think Julio Jones is going to be under-owned or lower owned than he should be.
I like that a lot.
I love him this week. I think it's just he's in a smash shot, like you said, letting air yards, and they're just looking for him all over the field. When he comes out of the game, their team looks totally different. It's terrible to watch them run an offensive play when he's not in the game because it's just so obvious what they're doing, and they just look so lost without him on the field. It's just he's in a great spot. He usually dominates Carolina. I had his past games against Carolina up. I don't have it right now, but he dominates them. It's just I love Cam. I told you guys that before in a GPP. You can play him naked. You don't need to play him with anyone else unless you like McCaffrey, like me and Chris do. But if you didn't, you could just play him naked. But Julio, bringing it back with Julio is the way I'd go. I think it's really sneaky.
All right. Any other final sneaky takes here? I like that Julio play. I mean, he's got 19 targets. So, yeah, you got to like him.
Yep. Coming on a longer week, too. And the one big concern always with Julio is he seems to be always nicked up at the beginning or in the middle to end of the year. So you're getting a healthy Julio, and everybody's going to be clicking on Antonio Brown or Michael Thomas just because of what they did last week. Julio had a monster week, but remember, he played on Thursday, so a lot of people weren't owning him. So a lot of people don't think of that game in their heads because that Thursday was basically just all the showdown slates. So
right.
I like that.
All right.
And I think that just one more guy, if we're talking about tournaments, I think Keenan Allen would be my second favorite GPP wide receiver. I think he's going to be lower owned too. Just because of game script, who they're playing. I think people are going to play Melvin Gordon a lot, and he's going to kind of get lost like he did last year when he absolutely torched them. So I like Keenan Allen a lot.
Well, he pairs nicely with our my Kelvin Benjamin, LaShawn McCoy stack. So
there you go.
Sounds like
if that wins any money, that would
sounds
be the
like
best.
we just found our winner, boys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw one. It's not sneaky anymore. It's like the obvious contrarian take is Matthew Stafford coming back after looking absolutely horrible, and this team looking absolutely horrible, who didn't play well together in the preseason at all too. But I thought my man Golladay looked awesome. Mm-hmm. Golden Tate has a good matchup. I think Jimmy G is going to get going in this game, so I do like this game overall, and so that might be an angle I take. And a quick question for you guys is am I stupid for thinking that maybe Andrew Luck improves a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know how much he's going to be throwing down field. It seems like it's part of their game plan to just put him in shotgun and then quick passes. So I don't know if that's an arm thing or if that's just a total new look to the offense, but it's very Brady-esque. Get the ball out as quickly as possible. So I'm probably not going to buy it until they get back into Indy on the turf where we can utilize T.Y. Hilton's speed.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brett. I'm with you. I think there's a lot of other quarterback options too.
It's stupid, I know. I'm just trying to think. And that game looks disgusting to everybody. Like, especially with Adrian Peterson, like the way that he's just dominated last week, and like he'll probably get a huge workload with not a ton of resistance again this week. But I don't know.
Another game to talk about too is Cleveland going to New Orleans. Obviously, we know the Saints, how many points they always put up at home. Happened week 1 with Tampa. I don't mind, like, if you want to try to get in on a Josh Gordon play. It looks like, I don't know how popular that's going to be, but he ended up playing 69 snaps out of 89 snaps last week. Very under the radar because he only had 3 targets. But this is going to be a game where, they're going to be coming from behind most likely for the whole game here. So I think he gets peppered with a lot of balls.
Well, that's the formula of last week that won the Millie is you take Tyrod and you take Josh Gordon and you run it back with some of that Pittsburgh chalk and throw in some other chalk and boom, $1 million.
Right.
$1 million. So that's it right there. So is that enough for this show?
I guess so. We probably don't have time to obviously talk about too much else. So we've already gone over our 35, 40 minutes or whatever it is.
Yep. Just know, paying up for Rob Gronkowski will be contrarian.
Yeah, it will.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but
yeah, everybody's going to be, I think, all over the Kittle for sure this week.
Kittle, Cook.
How many targets he got? Yep, going to be going cheap for sure at that price range.
Oh, I'll fade Cook. No problem for me.
I have a tough time with Njoku. I think he's a really good talent. I really like him a lot.
Mm-hmm. He's out on the field like every single snap too. So
yeah,
he's going to get plenty of opportunity in which should be a pass happy game for Cleveland.
Yep.
All right. Well, that about wraps up our show. Let's win some money this weekend. Let's nail that LaShawn McCoy, Kelvin Benjamin, Keenan Allen stack. I'm going to put that in. I promise I will have that, and let's hope it wins. And so that'll and if I win the $1 million, I'll share it with you with both of you.
Oh, really? I'll write that down.
This isn't binding. This is my thoughts as of today, and like I said in the past, that I by Sunday I'm in a completely different place. So this does not lock me in. But
yeah,
I'm a good guy, so like maybe maybe.
Yeah, but still plenty of injuries. We are recording this on Thursday night, so keep an eye. Like John said, the Devontae Freeman news is going to change up a lot of the ownership of running back prices.
Yep, with Tevin Coleman for sure. All right, that's another edition. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This is the RG NFL DFS Tournament Takes podcast, and we will catch you again next week. Thanks a lot.